QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Pay bill for inventory purchase. In other words, we're going to complete the process of the vendor purchasing cycle. We created a purchase order. We had then received the inventory, entering a bill at that point in time, and now we're going to be paying that bill. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our Get Great Guitar homepage. We currently have the open windows open. We can open the open windows by hitting the view dropdown and selecting the open windows list. We're going to be paying a bill now. We're going to be completing the cycle we did for the purchasing cycle. So the purchasing cycle took place with starting off with the purchase order. Then we received the inventory. Now we're going to be paying the bill for that. Now, when we had the purchase order, you'll recall that there was no transaction for the purchase order, unlike when we are going to make a purchase. When we make a purchase from something like Amazon or something like that, or for a small company, and we don't have as much control on the purchasing side of things, we might be paying for the purchase even when we order it. There will be a transaction in that case. However, if you have more control as the purchaser and you're able to request a purchase, have the vendor send the inventory to you before recording the transaction or making the payment, then you might be using the purchase order. If we select the purchase order here, just to track this through the process that we've been going through, the full vendor process here, and I'm going to go back to the prior item. Here's the vendor. That was our new vendor where we had this purchase order we set up, and we got the 20 guitars that we were purchasing for this particular customer, even though the vendor doesn't care about our customer, but we wanted to track the customer through, and we saw that in the prior presentation. And then we received it. So this purchase order has now then been received. This is just the request. We sent it out. We said, okay, I'm going to close this back up. And then we said it was received with a bill. So it was received with the inventory with a bill. So we imagine those guitars showing up at our warehouse. And I'm going to go back one here. And there it is. There's our bill with the Squire guitars have shown up now. And then they had a bill and they said, hey, you owe us $3,000. We said, okay, we have 20 guitars. That matches what we requested on the purchase order. So we're going to enter the bill into the system. When we entered the bill into the system, we increased the accounts payable, and we recorded the increase in the inventory. So that's where we stand at this point in time, and now we're going to be paying the bill. So I'm going to pay the bill over here with the pay bill icon. But just as we do this, note that we just followed this track up top on the vendor side of things, which will only be there if you purchase and sell inventory. But you will always have this track on the bottom, which is enter bills and pay bills on the bottom. And this will be kind of the normal bills that you would be paying that wouldn't be related to the inventory, things like the phone bill, utility bill, anybody else that you're paying that you get a bill from. You could simply enter the bill and then pay the bill, rather than what we did last month, where all like the normal items that we had, we simply wrote a check, meaning when we got something like the phone bill or the utility bill or something like that, we simply wrote a check for it when we got it. You can't do that, and that makes perfect sense. It skips a step in the process. However, if you work at larger companies, they're always going to be wanting to wait till the end of the payment terms in order to pay the bill, typically, for a cash management strategy. And therefore, even with the normal kind of bills that you're going to be getting, you'll often be entering those bills into the bill payment here, and then sorting them within your bill payment and paying them at a later point in time. So we have then the two cycles. We're following the cycle up top, and notice this drop down when I go to this receive inventory with a bill is basically the same form as enter bill, right? We're just following along the flow up top, and then you will follow along the flow up on the bottom, which will be there for all like the normal bills. And that's what we'll do, and we'll deviate from what we did last month, which is we did everything on a cash basis for the bills. We paid the bills by just writing a check last month. This time we'll do the bills up here, and we'll do that at the end of basically the month. So we'll see that later. Right now we're focusing in on the top row here. So then I'm going to go to the pay bills, and when we get to the pay bills, then we have the same kind of layout on the pay bills. Once again, there's not a whole lot going on here because we only have a few transactions happening in the pay bills. If you work at a big company, you could have a whole department on the accounts payable side of things, and this pay bills things would be huge, and you'd be tracking this thing and trying to see which ones you want to pay, which ones you can delay. You're always trying to, maximize your cash management strategies and whatnot. But here's the bill that we see that was from vendor. Now, when we pay this, we could sort this once again by sorting. And again, if we had a lot of bills down there, we could sort it. That would be nice. We're going to show all the bills because there's just the one bill. You could filter it. Also, you could just try to filter it by vendor. So if you had a whole lot of bills, you can sort this by vendor, which can be very useful when you're looking at a particular vendor that you owe. And you could sort by other fields here as well, such as discount, vendor, amount due, and so on and so forth. If I double click on this bill, well, that won't take me there, but if I select this bill, and then I go down here and I go to bill, so I say go to bill, then it'll show me that actual bill, so we can see the detail of the bill. So then I'm going to close that back out, and so I'm going to select this one, so we're going to pay that item, and then I'm going to go down here. We could go to the bill, we can set the discount or set credits if those are applicable. We're going to have then the date down below. Let's make the date on 02/21/21, 02/21/21. It's going to be coming out of the checking account. Now, when we do this, it will basically be writing a check type form, or in other words, the check type form is going to be the form that's going to be decreasing the checking account. So whatever we're doing when we're decreasing the checking account, we're using basically a check type form. If we were to print the checks, we would choose the item up top, and we would then have our checks that would be, we would buy the checks. We still have to buy the checks. We can't just print them on a piece of paper. We have to buy the checks and then put them into the printer and then line up the check numbers within our system to the check numbers that are pre-printed on the actual checks. Or you can have this second item assigning the check numbers. If you don't have actual checks, you would assign something other than a check number, right? So that it doesn't go into the check numbers items, indicate something other than a check on it. So then we're going to say, so I'm going to do this one, assign the check numbers. If you're writing these, a check by hand and you're not doing it through the printer, then once again, you can assign the check number down here. You'll have your checkbook, and you want to make sure that the check number that you are on will line up to the check numbers that will be assigned in QuickBooks. So then I'm going to go ahead and say pay, and I could say I can enter the check number here. And again, if it wasn't a check, I might put something, indicate some other number other than the check number sequence there. Or I'm going to go to the Let QuickBooks Assign the Number, and I'm going to say OK. And there we have it. Now QuickBooks assigned the next check number in line, which was the 1015. So I'm going to say that looks good. Let's say done. I like to check the check register now just to see it there because I'm just used to doing that. So I'm going to go, you could go there by going to the register on the right-hand side. You could go to the banking and go to the use register. I like to go to the lists and then the chart of accounts. Just to practice the fact that I can go into a similar register for all balance sheet accounts. And then I'm going to double click on the checking account, go to the bottom, and we should see our new check down here for vendor. Here it is. So it's a check. It is a check, but it's a bill payment type check. And you can see the reference being different, but it's still basically a decrease in the account. Now, when you double click on this little icon, you got to be right on that bill payment thing. It still looks like a check up top because it is a check. But the bottom half is different, and the bottom half will be that indication that, hey, look, this is a check that paid off the accounts payable, and that's important because oftentimes when you're trying to drill back down, and if our vendor had a question, we might then go to the payment that we made to them, and then go to the bill that we entered, and the bill might provide us the more detail that we're looking for. So if I close this back out. So there it is there. Let's go ahead and check it out on the financials now by going, I'll close this out entirely. We don't need that there. And I'll close this out entirely. So we just have the home page. Then I'm going to go to the reports drop down, company and financial. Let's take a look at the balance sheet first. I'm going to change the dates up top by customizing the reports and changing the dates from 01/01/21 to 12/31/21, January through December 2021. Double clicking on that checking account. In the checking account, we see then the amount down here for vendor. So there it is. Double clicking on that, it takes us back to our check, but the check with a special bottom part that basically indicates that it was a payable, and then it gives us the bill so we can go to that bill and gives us that information. When I look at the type over here, notice again it's a decrease to the checking account, just like any other check would be, just like the one right below it, but it's going to be indicated by a bill pay check. And so it's really nice to have that, because when you just look at the form type over here, you'll be able to basically tell a lot about that transaction. You can say, okay, that's something that I paid off the accounts payable for. So if I want to see the other expense account that was affected by it, then I go to the actual bill. Or in this case, if I want to see the account that was affected when I purchased, in this case it was inventory, an inventory account, then I can go to the bill to kind of basically figure that out. So that's a really nice item there. Also, the split has it here, which will tell you again that it's going to accounts payable. The other side's in accounts payable. Closing this back out. Let's go to accounts payable. It's going to be a liability down here. Notice accounts payable has disappeared because it's down to 0 again. So let's go to I like to go to the trial balance when that's the case, if I want to double click on something that has a 0 balance, but there was activity in it. So I'm going to go to the reports. I'm going to go to the accounting and taxes. Take a look at the trusty TB trial balance. Change the dates from 01, 01, 01, 21, 12, 31, 21. And we should have a accounts payable. There it is. If I double click on that accounts payable, then there's that 3,360 bringing us back down to 0. So the accounts payable also has a subledger. Let's take a look at this subledger by going to the reports drop down. Let's go to the vendors and payables, and let's take a look at the vendor balance detail. Vendor balance detail. So that we have vendor, there was the bill. The bill has now gone down to 0, so we owe nobody any money, which is nice. So our accounts payable total is 0. That 0, of course, ties out to what would be on the trial balance and balance sheet. Let's just check our numbers at this point. So if you're following along with the practice problem, here's where we are with the balance sheet. So you can check your numbers there. No change to the income statement from this transaction because all we did was pay off the accounts payable. And when we paid it off, we paid off something that we purchased. When we purchased it, there was no effect on the income statement either because it went into the inventory. When's there going to be an effect on the income statement? When we sell it. when we sell the inventory, then we're going to have an effect on the income statement, which will be in the form of cost of goods sold. So let's take a look at the trial balance. So if you're following along, you can check your numbers on the trial balance, which I think is the easiest place to do so.